welcome back to the gallery. I couldn't wait until next week. I really did want to film part two. I say part two in case you missed the first episode. I encourage you to look for it. It's exactly the same title as this, except part one, not part two. And in case you have missed it, let me just have a quick recap. Behind me is my reimagination of the famous, notorious, conceptual art piece of Damien Hirst's, affectionately known as the Pickled Shark, but its correct title is something like The Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Who is Living. And that work of Damien Hirst has never really sat well with me. I don't like the flagrant killing of sharks in the name of art. And I do have a feeling that a lot of conceptual art is put it diplomatically, generously, a sleight of hand. So, no, I'm not a huge fan. And I thought, let me rework the shark in my medium of choice: twisted wire, pliers and wire, a little bit of automotive paint, and behind me is a replica of the shark, made out of wire, same size, 4.3 metre shark, same size tank, 5 metres, obviously no formaldehyde, but there is an additional piece, a little boy. And who is he? Well, he is my wife's great nephew, Yuri. And the first time Yuri saw one of my sharks, I'd actually made a prototype for this, he, without hesitation, stuck his hand in its mouth, playing with the shark. And that really got me thinking, and that's what I want to talk about in today's video. Now, since opening the gallery, I had a number of school visits, and I talked to the kids about this very subject. And I asked them, what do you think the young lad is doing? And they say, well, and why is he doing it? They can tell that he's putting the hand in the mouth of the shark, and they say it's kind of, their first response tends to be its curiosity. Will the shark bite him? Of course, he's well aware that it won't. It's made out of wire. It's literally a fish, a wire fish, out of water. You're perfectly safe. And that's the joy of playing. It got me thinking about playing. What are children actually doing when they're playing? And let's be fair, not just children. You look at lion cubs, they play too. And they are pretending to be adults. They are acting out later forms of behaviour or experimenting with ways of being in a manner that is safe, that has been stripped of the inherent danger with a lot of, I suppose, adult activities. Or sometimes they're just having fun. And there we are. I thought, well, why not include that in my installation? But it has everything to do with the title that I gave my piece, which is The Possibility of Life in the Mind of the Artist. Now, it's an obvious reversal of Damien Hirst's title. And at face value, you might think that it's just a parody, or perhaps I'm poking fun. After all, the possibility of life in the mind of an artist, if everything's the opposite, am I suggesting that Damien Hirst isn't an artist? And no, I think Damien Hirst is an artist. He's a very successful artist. He's a very influential artist. I don't think he's a very interesting artist. And frankly, I don't think he's very good. He's good up to a point. I think great art is that which makes objects which are more than just a cheap trick or sensationalism. They are objects of wonder. And I imagine you are amazed and filled with wonder the first time you see a pickled shark. Of course, you would be if you went to a natural history museum. The response is no different. I don't believe you sit pondering existential questions and going back time after time to question whether you have it in you to imagine that final frontier that is death. But when I started thinking about my great-nephew, my wife's great-nephew Yuri, and playing with the shark, and thinking about children playing, I also couldn't help but remember that sort of, and I'm not even going to try and quote, the Picasso claim that, you know, the true artists are children, and as adults we have to unlearn being adults and remember being children. We have to reconnect with the inner artist that is the child. So when I'm talking about the possibility of life in the mind of the artist, I very much am considering children to be by nature artists. And of course, we were all children once, so we were artists too. We just forgot how to be artists. And in a way, I see my work as, I almost want it to be a kind of call to arms, a rallying call to rediscover your inner child and your inner artist. I think also this idea of life, the very act of creating art, is giving life to an idea. This shark, before it became a large wire object, was a roll of 18-gauge galvanized wire. And I don't want to sort of get ideas above my station, but, you know, I, the artist, breathed life into it. I imagined it, and then it came into being. And in fact, I think the creative act, well, that's what it is. We think of something, and in making it happen, in bringing it in the world, we are giving it our idea life. Some of the ideas are better than others, and the life lives longer. And that's I suppose, my beef with Damien's shark, that what it's done, it had great shock value, and it has inspired lots of other people to make a sort of anti-art. A quick idea, and then great claims made about it. And I think that's, frankly, not good enough. So that, I suppose, is a little bit of unpacking of my title. And it's what I want to do here. I live in a small village where, frankly, there is no art on display. My wife and I built this gallery. One of the sort of underlying missions, again, it sounds a bit grandiose, but I think it's the right word, was to bring a gallery here to our little village. Because to visit the big city and see art exhibitions, well, it's a 110-kilometre journey. Not a journey that people generally would take. And when they are in the big city, they would be there for sort of functional purposes. So if the I always get this the wrong way around. You know, Muhammad and the mountain. You know, if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad goes to the mountain, or the other way round, depending on which one's which in this particular forced analogy. So we created a gallery. And that's the interest in making reworkings connecting with famous art. It's to start a conversation about art with people who perhaps otherwise would have been blissfully unaware that it existed in the first place. But it's also an idea to show that this very humble material, galvanized wire, contains in it a life of its own, beyond just binding stuff or repairing your local fence. It can be anything you want it to be. It has an infinity of purposes. And I think that's something that children, of course, when they're very young, and if they grow up in a sort of nurturing environment, they have that in abundance. And that is why they draw. They have these wonderful ideas and they express them spontaneously on the page. There's a wonderful line in that famous Ken Robinson, the late Sir Ken Robinson talk, TED talk about our schools killing creativity. And one of his many terrific one-liners is talking about an art class with 6-year-olds. And the teacher was walking around the room and went up to little Mary, or perhaps Johnny, and we have to allow for both possibilities now in our inclusive world, and where we're careful about the impact of language. Anyway, I'm getting lost in nonsense. And back to the story. The teacher comes up to the young lad or lass and says, "What are you drawing?" And they say, "It's God, miss." Or mister. And the teacher says, "But nobody's seen God. They don't know, they don't. How do you know what God looks like?" And I said, "Well, they might not have seen God. They don't know what he looks like. They will now." And I suppose I butchered the story a bit, but you know what I mean. Children have that idea. They have this phenomenal imagination, and they bring stuff out of it into the world. And then at a certain point, they are knocked back because it's not quite realistic enough. They're not quite good enough. Or where will their childish drawings lead them? What's the purpose? And soon they stop drawing, stop playing, and they start becoming very serious, and they grow up. And of course, don't we all? And we might be a little nostalgic, but, we do need to grow up. But equally, we need to keep that contact with our inner child. And that's kind of the message I want to give to people. That, if you dreamed of something when you were a little boy or girl, don't let go of that dream. You can be the shark. Or you could be that marine biologist playing with a shark in the deep blue of the ocean. I don't know. Anyway, that's part 2. That's what this piece is all about. Let me know what you think. I'd love a comment. Likes and subscriptions are also quite nice, but, if you don't have the time, I understand. And until the next video, from a sunny Brazil or an art-filled gallery,